We can't cancel Adele. That would ruin your sister's entire year. The words, spoken by my own mother, echoed through the phone with a chilling finality. They weren't shouted, they were delivered with the same dismissive, matter-of-fact tone she'd used my entire life to brush aside my needs, my feelings, my very existence whenever it proved inconvenient. But this time, the casual cruelty of it felt like a physical blow, a shard of ice lodging itself deep in my chest. I gripped the cold metal rail of the hospital bed, my knuckles turning white. The thin, starchy blanket felt abrasive against my skin, a stark contrast to the comforting softness I so desperately craved. The air in the pre-op room was thick with the sterile scent of antiseptic and the low, anxious hum of medical equipment. It was a symphony of fear, a soundtrack to the worst day of my life. A few hours earlier, a kind, grim-faced doctor had shown me the shadow on my scan, a tumor that needed to come out immediately. He'd used words like aggressive and urgent, words that had sent a jolt of pure terror through me. But that terror was now being eclipsed by something far worse, a feeling of complete and utter abandonment. "Mom," I said, my voice barely a whisper, a pathetic attempt to keep it from trembling. The pre-surgery anxiety was a storm in my gut, but it was now mixed with a tidal wave of a much older, deeper pain. "Mom, I need emergency surgery to remove a tumor. They think it might be cancer." I let the word hang in the air, hoping its weight would finally break through her wall of indifference. "I just need you to watch the twins for a few hours. Just for the surgery and the immediate recovery." My twin baby girls, Sophia and Grace, my perfect, beautiful miracles, were only 8 months old. The thought of them being left with strangers while I was under anesthesia, vulnerable and unconscious, was a horror I couldn't bear. They were the center of my universe, the two tiny heartbeats that gave my own life meaning. I had brought them into this world by myself, a deliberate, love-filled choice to become a single mother by choice through IVF. They were everything. And in this moment of crisis, my first and only thought was to turn to my family, the people I had been taught were supposed to be my unbreakable support system. A sigh, heavy with impatience, crackled through the receiver. "Naomi, honestly. You're always so dramatic." The words were so familiar they could have been a recording. It was the family mantra, the label they'd slapped on me since childhood whenever my emotions were too big for them to handle. My father's gruff voice joined in from the background, muffled but clear. "You're being a problem again, Naomi. Always creating problems at the worst times." A problem. My potentially life-threatening illness was a problem for them. An inconvenience. "Can't you find someone else?" My father's voice grew louder as he must have taken the phone. "We've had these tickets for months. Your mother and Kelly have been looking forward to this." I don't have anyone else, Dad," I stammered, the tears I'd been holding back finally starting to sting my eyes. "The surgery is tomorrow morning. It's an emergency." The surgeon was very clear. "Every day we wait increases the risk of complications." I was a successful senior marketing manager at Hollowgate Systems here in Portland, Oregon. I was good at my job, respected by my colleagues. I managed multi-million-dollar campaigns with a cool head, navigated complex corporate politics, and raised 2 infants on my own. I was, by all accounts, a competent, capable adult. But on the phone with my parents, I was instantly reduced to that little girl who was always too much, too sensitive, too serious. The little girl who, for her entire adult life, had served as the family's financial safety net. I was Naomi Clark, 34 years old, and for as long as I could remember, I had been the one they called. Not to check in, not to see how I was, but to ask for something. I had spent most of my adult life being their emergency fund, their lender of last resort, their get-out-of-jail-free card. When they'd faced foreclosure 3 years ago after a series of my father's disastrous investment schemes, I had liquidated my entire emergency fund, the money I had painstakingly saved since my first part-time job, to keep the roof over their heads. No questions asked. When my younger sister, Kelly, the effervescent, carefree golden child, needed a car for her new job, I'd covered the down payment. The mountain of credit card debt she'd racked up on designer clothes and weekend trips? I'd quietly paid it off over 2 years to protect her credit score. The rent money when she was between jobs for the 5th time? It came from my account. The $500 I transferred to my parents' account on the 1st of every month, plus the grocery deliveries I scheduled whenever my mother hinted that things were tight, was a non-negotiable part of my budget. I thought that kind of support meant something. I thought it was building a foundation of reciprocal love, of familial duty that would be there for me if I ever truly needed it. I was so wrong. Lying there in that sterile hospital gown, I realized the tumor wasn't the only malignancy I was dealing with. There was a poison that had been growing in our family dynamic for years, a toxic imbalance I had not only tolerated but actively enabled. Growing up, I was the responsible one. While Kelly spent her teenage years focused on friends, boyfriends, and being the life of every party, I was working part-time jobs and saving for college. My parents praised her vibrant social life, her effortless popularity, and gently chided me for being too serious for my own good. When Kelly dropped out of college halfway through her sophomore year to find herself on a trip to Europe, funded, of course, by me, they supported her decision, calling it a brave act of self-discovery. When I graduated summa cum laude and landed my first marketing job at a top firm, they barely acknowledged it, my mother's only comment being, "Well, that's nice, dear. Now maybe you can help your father with his new business idea." The pattern continued seamlessly into adulthood. My achievements were seen as a resource, a utility for the family. Kelly's whims were celebrated as the passions of a free spirit. "Your sister would be devastated if we missed it." My mother's voice was back on the line, softer now, but laced with the same steely resolve. "Surely your surgery can wait a day or two." My blood ran cold. "Mom, this isn't something I can reschedule like a dentist appointment. It's cancer. They need to operate now," I whispered, the word cancer catching in my throat like a shard of glass. There was a pause. Then, my mother snapped, her voice stripped of all pretense. "Well, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you should have thought of this before having babies without a father around. We have obligations too, you know." The line went quiet, but the cruelty of her words screamed in my ears. The implication was clear, my life choices, my beautiful daughters, had made me a burden. An unmanageable one. I could hear my father muttering in the background again, something about me always creating problems at the worst times. The ceiling tiles above me blurred as tears streamed down my face. I stared at them, counting the tiny, perforated holes, trying to anchor myself to something, anything, to keep from completely falling apart. My sister, Kelly. She had never had to ask them for anything because I'd always been there, a silent buffer between her and the consequences of her choices. I'd covered her expenses for years. The car I helped buy, the credit card debt I'd quietly paid off, the rent money. Deep down, I'd always known where I stood in their priorities. I just hadn't wanted to admit it to myself. The tumor hadn't just revealed itself on my scan. It had revealed something equally poisonous that had been festering in our family for decades. And in that moment, something inside me broke. Or maybe, it finally healed. The call ended with a vague, non-committal mumble from my mother. I didn't protest further. I didn't beg. I just said, "Okay," and hung up. The silence that followed was deafening. I was alone. Truly, utterly alone. My first call was to an emergency babysitting service I found online. The rates were astronomical, but I paid with my credit card without a second thought. My second call was to my next-door neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, a sweet, elderly widow, just to let her know a professional sitter would be coming and going. "Oh, my dear child," she'd said, her voice filled with a genuine warmth that made me choke up. "A tumor? Are you all right? Forget the sitter, I'll come over right now. I'll watch those precious grandbabies of mine for as long as you need. Don't you worry about a thing." I had to gently refuse, explaining the twins' complex schedule and my need for professional, overnight care, but her kindness was a balm on my raw, wounded heart. A near stranger was offering me the unconditional support my own mother had denied me. The surgery went as well as it could. The tumor, thankfully, was benign. As I lay in the recovery room, groggy and sore, my phone started buzzing. It was a series of messages from Kelly. The first was a picture of her and my parents, all dressed up, beaming. On our way to see Adele. Wish you were here. The next was a short, shaky video from inside the stadium, the roar of the crowd deafening. It's amazing. Then, a photo of her and my mother holding up overpriced concert merchandise, their smiles wide and ecstatic. I stared at the screen, a cold, hard knot forming in my stomach. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. Just a hollow, echoing emptiness. The final message arrived later that night, a voicemail from my mother, her voice slurred slightly from the wine she'd no doubt been enjoying. Naomi, honey, just checking in. Hope everything went okay. Kelly had the most wonderful time. Just a magical night. Anyway, don't forget that transfer is due on the 1st. Talk soon. I didn't delete the messages. I saved them. Every single one. They were my evidence. My permission slip to do what I should have done years ago. When I was discharged the next morning, I called the babysitter to arrange the pickup of the twins. Mrs. Patterson, bless her heart, had apparently been checking on them every few hours, and the sitter reported that Sophia and Grace were perfectly content. I paid the bill, nearly $300 for overnight care, without complaint. It was worth every penny to know my daughters had been safe and loved while I couldn't be there. Driving home with the twins babbling happily in their car seats in the back, I felt something shift inside me. The post-anesthesia haze made everything feel slightly surreal, but my thoughts were crystal and clear for the first time in my life. I was done. Done being the family bank account. Done being taken for granted. Done pretending that my parents' love came without a long, itemized list of conditions. At home, after putting the girls down for their nap, I opened my laptop. My hands moved with a calm, steady purpose. I navigated to my online banking portal. I found the automatic transfer I'd set up years ago, the $500 a month that would now stay in my daughter's college fund, where it belonged. With a single click, I canceled it. Then, I opened my credit card account and found the authorized user card under Kelly's name. I reported it lost and canceled it. I went through my grocery delivery app and deleted my parents' address. Finally, I opened my phone's contacts. My mother. My father. My sister. One by one, I blocked their numbers. It felt both terrifying and liberating, like jumping off a cliff while knowing, for the first time, that I had wings. The twins needed their afternoon nap, and as I settled them in their cribs, Grace reached up and touched my face with her tiny, perfect hand. Sophia gave me one of her gummy smiles that never failed to melt my heart. These two perfect little humans were my priority now. Not parents who couldn't be bothered to call after my surgery. Not a sister who took my generosity for granted. I'd spent years believing that love meant constant giving, constant availability, constant sacrifice. But watching my daughter sleep peacefully, I realized I'd been modeling the wrong lesson. Love was supposed to be reciprocal. Love was supposed to show up when it mattered most. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Probably my parents, trying to reach me from Kelly's phone. I turned the phone face down and went to make myself a proper dinner, for the first time in months. 3 days passed in blissful silence. No demanding calls about late bills. No guilt trips about family obligations. No requests for emergency money transfers. I focused entirely on healing and caring for Sophia and Grace, discovering what life felt like when I wasn't constantly worried about everyone else's problems. On Thursday evening, as I was giving the twins their baths, someone pounded on my apartment door with the kind of urgency that suggested an emergency. My heart rate spiked as I quickly wrapped both babies in towels and carried them to the living room. Through the peephole, I saw Kelly standing in the hallway, her face red and tear-streaked. She was alone, which surprised me. Usually, when there was family drama, my parents sent her as their messenger while they maintained their dignity in the background. "Naomi. I know you're in there," she called out, her voice frantic. "Please. We need to talk. Something terrible has happened." I considered ignoring her, but Sophia started crying at the loud noise, and I didn't want to upset the babies. I cracked the door open, keeping the chain lock engaged. "What do you want, Kelly? Can I come in? Please," she begged. "I've been calling and texting for 2 days. Mom and Dad are freaking out because you're not responding." "I'm not available to them anymore," I said calmly. "Or to you, for that matter." Her eyes widened with what appeared to be genuine confusion. "What do you mean? Naomi, this is serious. Dad lost his job yesterday. They're going to lose the house." I felt a flicker of the old panic, the immediate, ingrained urge to ask how much they needed and how quickly I could transfer it. But I pushed that feeling down and studied my sister's face more carefully. She looked genuinely distressed, but there was something else there, something that reminded me of the way she used to look when she wanted to borrow my car or needed me to cover for her with our parents. "That's unfortunate," I said finally. "But it's not my problem." "Not your problem? Naomi, you've been helping them for years. They're counting on you. We all are." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "Were you counting on me when I needed surgery? When I had a tumor in my body and you and Mom and Dad chose a concert instead?" Kelly's expression shifted, and I could see her trying to formulate an explanation that would make her parents' behavior seem reasonable. "That was different. They had those tickets for months, and your surgery turned out fine anyway. You're being dramatic about this." The word dramatic hit me like a physical blow. It was the same word my father had used, the same dismissive attitude that had characterized my entire relationship with my family. Even now, even after everything, they couldn't acknowledge that they'd done anything wrong. "I had emergency surgery to remove a tumor, and instead of watching my children, they went to a concert," I said slowly, my voice dangerously quiet. "And I'm the one being dramatic?" I could see her trying to process this, her mind working to find the right words to change my mind. But instead of reflecting on the truth of what I'd said, she shifted into attack mode. "You're being selfish," she said, her voice rising. "You make good money. You don't have a husband to support. You've always been fine taking care of everyone. Why are you changing the rules now?" The casual cruelty of her words, the implication that being a single mother made my financial struggles less valid, that my success meant I owed them something, crystallized everything I'd been feeling. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a communication issue. This was who they were, and who they'd always been. "I'm changing the rules because I finally realized I've been playing a rigged game," I said. "And I'm done losing." I closed the door and turned the deadbolt, ignoring Kelly's continued knocking and pleading. I focused on comforting my daughters. After about 10 minutes, the knocking stopped, and I heard Kelly's car start in the parking lot. I felt strangely hollow, like I'd just performed surgery on myself and removed something that had been poisoning me for years. My phone rang immediately. A number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail and played the message back while preparing the twins' dinner. "Naomi, this is your mother." Her voice was strained, more formal than usual. "Kelly told us about your conversation. We need to discuss this situation like adults. Please call me back immediately." The tone was all wrong. No acknowledgement of my surgery, no concern for my well-being, just irritation that I wasn't falling in line. I deleted the message and blocked that number, too. A week later, I got a call from a number with a local area code. My first instinct was to ignore it, assuming it was another attempt by my family to reach me. But something made me answer. Miss Clark? This is Janet from Meridian Bank. I'm calling about the account ending in 4782. There's been some unusual activity, and we wanted to verify. I interrupted her. I'm sorry, but I don't have an account with that number. The account is listed under Thomas Clark and Margaret Clark, but you're listed as an authorized user and emergency contact. My parents' account. The one I'd removed myself from years ago, or so I thought. I need to be removed from that account immediately, I told Janet. I am no longer associated with those account holders in any capacity. Of course, Miss Clark. I can process that removal right away. But I should let you know, the account is significantly overdrawn, and there have been several returned payment attempts this week. As the emergency contact, you would normally be notified. I don't want to be notified about anything related to that account, I said firmly. Please remove all my information. And don't contact me again about their financial situation. After I hung up, I sat in my office chair, feeling oddly detached from the news. A few months ago, hearing that my parents were in financial trouble would have sent me into immediate crisis mode. I would have been calculating how much I could transfer, what bills I could delay, how I could solve their problem before it got worse. Now, I felt nothing but a mild curiosity about how long it had taken them to drain their account without my monthly contributions. 3 weeks, apparently. That told me everything I needed to know about how they'd been managing their money all these years. My phone buzzed with a text from another unknown number. Naomi, this is Kelly. Mom and Dad's electricity got shut off. They're staying with me, but my landlord says they can't stay long. Can we please talk? I deleted the message without responding. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened my banking app and looked at my account balance. For the first time since the twins were born, I had a substantial emergency fund. Money that was mine, earmarked for my daughter's future, instead of my parents' poor financial decisions. I smiled and put my phone away. The cycle was finally broken. And it felt like freedom. Looking back, I realized that sometimes the greatest act of love toward yourself is walking away from people who only love what you can give them. And I had finally learned that lesson well enough to protect my daughters from repeating my mistakes.